Vladimír Putin uses the same tactics in every war he wages. Understanding what he's done before can help us predict Russia's next moves in Ukraine. This is how Putin fights. Putin's army has been killing civilians for years. Chechnya in 1999, Georgia 2008, Syria, and now Ukraine. Many believe this isn't just collateral damage. These attacks are by design.
It's intentional bombing. They're attacking civilian targets.
It's a tactic designed to drive as many people out of the capital as possible.
Anybody left in there will be assumed to be hostile.
The first war that Putin led was one of the worst humanitarian disasters in recent history. In 1999, when he was only the second most powerful man in Russia, he sent forces into Chechnya, just a few years after the Russian military had previously invaded under Boris Yeltsin. The two relentless Chechen campaigns set the template for Putin's wars. Russian forces flattened the capital, Grozny.
The months of relentless and indiscriminate Russian bombing have left Grozny a dead city.
By the time they'd left, up to 8,000 civilians were dead. The UN described Grozny as the most destroyed city on Earth. Russia's wars have followed the same pattern ever since. In Syria, Russia carried out airstrikes alongside the Syrian regime. Cities were reduced to rubble. Hospitals were hit again and again. Hamza al-Kataib is a Syrian doctor who witnessed them.
It's kind of their war tactic. There is no kind of haven place. It's destroying the resilience of the people.
The same is now happening to cities in Ukraine. Russian forces bombed a maternity hospital in Mariupol, and it's being investigated as a possible war crime. What do these tactics achieve? In Syria, airstrikes carried out by Russia and the Syrian regime have been crucial in turning the tide of war. The regime now controls large parts of the country and has claimed victory in a conflict that still rages. Putin wants the same in Ukraine. His biggest challenge so far has been the huge resistance from ordinary Ukrainians. This bombing campaign is designed to make them feel desperate and ultimately to force their leaders to surrender. This isn't the only weapon in Putin's psychological war. He uses disinformation to try to control the narrative. False flags are a big part of this, staging an attack and blaming it on someone else.
Creating false provocations, of then having to respond to those provocations and then ultimately committing new aggression.
His history with false flags goes all the way back to Chechnya. In 1999, 307 people were killed in bombings across Russia.
The government and the mayor of Moscow have been swift to blame Islamic militants. Chechens have vigorously denied involvement in the attacks.
Many historians believe that the attacks were planned by Putin loyalists to boost support for the war in Chechnya and for Putin himself. Within weeks, his approval ratings had soared, and just months later, he became president of Russia. Now Western governments are warning that Russia might carry out another false flag in Ukraine.
He's asserting that we, America, have biological as well as chemical weapons in Europe, and that Ukraine has biological and chemical weapons in Ukraine. That's a clear sign he's considering using both of those.
And this is almost exactly what happened in Syria. In 2016, the Russian embassy even tweeted a picture from a video game to illustrate what they said was evidence of Russia's enemies taking delivery of chemical weapons. The fear is that Putin is setting up excuses to carry out his own chemical assault on Ukraine.
Хочешь узнать о планах России? Посмотри, в чем Россия обвиняет других. Они уже делали такие вещи в других странах.
One of Putin's favourite tactics is deny and accuse, taking a real atrocity that he's committed and claiming the whole thing is some Western invention. Again, we saw this in Syria. Russia and its allies accused these people of being actors, wearing makeup. They claimed it was a Western-backed group, the White Helmets, who'd carried out the attack. But that's not true. It was Russia, and the people in the pictures were genuine victims. And again, this is happening right now in Ukraine. Russia claimed these women from the Mariupol hospital were actors and soldiers, that the hospital was being used as a military base by neo-Nazis and so was a legitimate target. But they have provided no evidence for this. These false narratives help shore up support for Putin back home in Russia, and they take time and effort for Western governments and journalists to examine. So, as the horrors unfold in Ukraine, remember, this is almost certainly not the chaos and confusion that it first appears. We can see what Putin has done before, and with that knowledge, Ukraine and its allies might be able to predict or even prevent what's coming next.